I fully understand as a person of sports. That's actually, I think, how we should start introducing ourselves. Hi, I'm Doug Gottlieb. I'm a person of sports. What does that mean? Well, I played them all growing up, played 2 of them in high school. I played 1 of them in college, 1 of them professionally. I follow all of them. I just love sports. Like, sports to me is so much cleaner, simpler. There's less outside. There's a scoreboard. There's a winner. There's a loser. There's adjustments. It's a very easy way for me to process life in sports as opposed to life in general. Right? But as a person of sports, I can tell you sports and scoreboards aren't fair. They're not always indicative of who the better team is, who the better player is. But it is the end to any discussion. Because you can say this one against us, that one against us, this ref, that fan, the cleats, the whatever. But once we have more than just one game and we have a bigger sample size, that's who you become. Right? And think about how we look back at athletes. Charles Barkley never won an NBA title. So Charles Barkley is a great player, and as a broadcaster, he's in any conversation of the greatest broadcasters of all time. I mean, you watch TNT when Charles isn't on. And they'll have Shaq on there. They'll have some of the same pieces, and you're like, eh. You got Barkley on there, you're like, I cannot stop watching Inside the NBA. He's that good. He's amazing. Just his presence, his humor, his insight at times. But Barkley is forever known as the guy who couldn't win the championship. Pat Ewing couldn't beat Jordan, couldn't win a championship. They had one chance when Jordan was out, couldn't do it. Right? Michael Jordan is not just Michael Jordan because of Jumpman. He really is Michael Jordan because he was in the NBA Finals 6 times. He won 6 NBA titles. Football's the same. Dan Marino is known as the best quarterback to never win a Super Bowl. Only been to 1. Right? And the reason that Tom Brady is considered the greatest of all time, Tom Brady was not the greatest quarterback of all time. Aaron Rodgers, way more talent and a Super Bowl and more MVPs. I would say that Peyton Manning probably had a higher football IQ and did more with less in terms of his own internal talent and didn't always play for the level of coaches. I think Tony Dungy was a level of coach but didn't always play for Tony Dungy. We judge people by, at the end of the day, if they win and if they lose. That's not fair. That's not always equitable. It's not usually a fair fight. But it is what it is. Lamar Jackson's team lost. Lamar Jackson didn't play particularly well. Lamar Jackson did make some plays which could have made it closer, made it a big game, but his rookie wide receiver got called for taunting in the first half, which I don't like taunting, but it's the AFC Championship game, and it wasn't like, unless it's egregious, if you're a real official, you grab him and go like, hey, dude, it's the AFC Championship game. You want a point first down? Fine. Get back in the huddle, otherwise I got to throw a penalty. Instead, you throw a penalty, you ready, shoot, aim with the penalty. You don't need that. But regardless, he kind of melts down on that penalty, and then he fumbles at the 1-inch line. Those 2 plays, but especially the fumble, those aren't the fault of Lamar Jackson. Right? Not the fault of it. But the Ravens had the best defense remaining in the playoffs for the 5th year. So this is the best roster he's going to have around him. They had the Chiefs, and the Chiefs offense scored 0 points in the second half. So it wasn't like they had a lead, they had to keep scoring because here comes Pat Mahomes. Pat Mahomes is a great quarterback, maybe the greatest to ever play the position. They had 3 3-and-outs of 6 possessions in the second half and scored 0 points. You get the ball 6 times, you can only score 3 points. You're the Baltimore Ravens, and you're the quarterback of the team, and you're the 2-time MVP. Sorry, dude, that's on you. Doesn't have to be fair. OBJ disappeared. Zay Flowers with a couple bonehead moves. Might have been pass interference with that interception to Likely, albeit he threw the ball in the wrong spot. That ball's supposed to be up right at the goalpost and likely can go make a play or no one else can catch it. He didn't throw it where it's supposed to be. If you think that it's fair, I will give you a name. Buyer, again, and I know that you have a ton of knowledge, so the second I say it, you could probably wax poetic on it, but just real quick, if I say Alex Smith, what is he perceived of? How is he perceived as a playoff quarterback?
Not well. And as a game manager.
Right, game manager, not great. Okay. And this is where, I haven't prepped you on it, so I don't expect you to know. And I did prep on it, where I'm watching, and I'm actually watching the second game and listening to the second game last night. And I was thinking to myself, Lamar Jackson is going to be judged now as a guy who can't win the playoffs. Right? Now, he's won 2 playoff games in the 4 playoff years that he's been there. Should be pointed out, he's always had the best defense on the field. Okay, but he's only 2 playoff games and can't win the big one. Can't win the big one. And people would say the same about Alex Smith. And Alex Smith hasn't been an league MVP the way that Lamar Jackson has. But in 2012, right, January 2012, his last start in the playoffs for the San Francisco 49ers was against the New York Giants. Now, all history remembers is that Alex Smith's team lost, the Giants won, the Giants then went and upset the New England Patriots and won the Super Bowl. Right, and Alex Smith once again came up short. So the next year, when Alex Smith was playing great, got a concussion, gets replaced by Colin Kaepernick. When he's back and he's healthy, people are like, why would you go back to Alex Smith? He can't win in the playoffs anyway. Right? Dan Byer, is that a fair?
Yes.
A fair? Okay.
Yep.
But the last playoff game he started with the San Francisco 49ers, he played great. And they win the game, if not for his kick returner, Kyle Williams, having not one but 2 fumbles. Let me repeat. He played great. He outplayed Eli Manning, who's going to the Hall of Fame. Outplayed him in the NFC Championship game. This freaking kick returner fumbled the ball twice. Byer, is that an accurate depiction of the game?
Yes, especially the second one.
Right. Does anybody ever mention that with Alex Smith? I know he wasn't good in the playoffs. But man, had they beaten think about it. You beat the Giants. You go to the Super Bowl. You might beat the Patriots that year. You beat the Patriots that year, and yeah, he's the game manager to win a Super Bowl, but he was the number 1 overall pick. They went from terrible to, once they got a Harbaugh winning. Again, it all changes if they win that game. Or at least he goes to Super Bowls where he goes hey, I went to a Super Bowl. It's not fair. Okay? But that's the way we judge quarterbacks. So I won't have any of this discussion about, well, you treat them differently because, no, we don't. Okay? Every one of these guys has an incredible amount of pressure, and if you win and if you lose, it's part of your record. It just is. Right? It really, really is. I mean, hell, Peyton Manning was widely considered the greatest quarterback of all time when he retired. Remember, Brady went on, won a couple Super Bowls afterwards and kind of cemented that legacy, but when Peyton retired, everybody's like, Peyton's the best quarterback I've ever seen. And there's a lot of different reasons that he didn't play as well in the playoffs. He's basically like a 500 playoff quarterback. But nobody cares. All we judge by is by results. And when you make a ton of money, which Lamar will next year, the criticism will be even worse. When you don't win in the playoffs and you're the regular season MVP, the criticism's bad. It doesn't matter if you're white, black, mixed race. It doesn't matter if you're a throwing quarterback or running quarterback. I didn't say it's fair, but the statement is pretty clear. As of now, until proven otherwise, I don't care if it's Todd Monken's offense, okay, or if they run single wing. He hasn't shown the ability in the playoffs to be good enough from the pocket to win you big playoff games. And I'm not sure he's going to get a better opportunity than at home against a fairly average Kansas City Chiefs roster with more rest, more momentum, and an offensive play caller that he kind of handpicked, and they don't have a huge book on what they were going to do in certain situations. And they still scored 3 points in the second half with 6 possessions. I could lie to you and tell you that Lamar is awesome. He's one of the greatest ever, but he's not. He can't be in that conversation because he doesn't win that game, and he hasn't shown the ability to win that game. Fair or unfair?